Welcome to Code or No Code Test, Why Top Teams Choose Both, presented by Applitools. My name is Heather Versillo, and I'm today's host. And I'm also happy to be joined by one of Applitools' favorite customers, Eric Terry. And he is the Senior Director of Quality Control at EVERSANA InTouch. Eric is very experienced in software testing, enterprise application development, and business systems analysis. He is also currently, like I said, Senior Director of Quality Control at EVERSANA InTouch, which is a leading global agency network in the life sciences industry.
Again, thank you for showing up for this session for Code or No Code Test and why top teams choose both. My name is Eric Terry, and I'm Senior Director of Quality Control at EVERSANA InTouch. Just really want to thank you all for taking some time out and joining us. Before we dive in, though, I do have a couple of questions, and I think you can just kind of give me a thumbs up on your answer on this. But how many of you have quality teams where you have some members who are very comfortable with coding? Looks like a pretty decent amount. All right, the second part of that is how many of you have team members who would love to get into some automation, but don't know how to code and may prefer a no-code approach? So, as you can see, there's a mix of preferences there, a mix of skills, and that's exactly what we're going to kind of discuss today. So, I've led our team through the challenging process of updating our QC approach. And I say QC, I know a lot of folks say QA, I say QC. To accommodate the diverse skill sets while maintaining some high standards. Just a little bit of what's in it for you. We're going to go over some practical strategies that seem to work for us, and we're going to focus on just a few takeaways, mainly how to effectively bridge the skill gaps in your quality teams, some techniques to accelerate your test cycles, and some methods to improve collaboration across the entire organization. It's not just the QC or QA teams that need to be able to collaborate better. It's the whole organization needs to be able to collaborate better. So we'll get into just understanding some of the challenges. So today, we have a lot of fast-paced development cycles and environments, and QC teams face quite a few barriers. Here are the top three that we face. Are primarily our skill gaps. Every team has a spectrum of technical abilities. Some team members are coding experts, like you had mentioned before when you gave your thumbs up. They're able to write complex automation scripts, while others, they are more able to excel at the test analysis, but are not really into the coding part of it. They don't have any coding experience. And one of the things that we found is that this diversity, it can become a source of friction, but if you lean into it and leverage it properly, it can actually become a good strength for you. For example, here, we initially struggled, when we tried to fit everybody in the same box and the same route of becoming an automation engineer or getting into automation. And we quickly realized that this approach, it was both inefficient and kind of demoralizing to the folks who were not, into the developer mindset, right? So coding is hard. And so we needed to find a way to make sure that those folks did not get left behind and were able to, upskill their skill sets as well. Second is this collaboration hurdles. We have manual testers, we have automation engineers, developers, business stakeholders. And they're all speaking different languages and they all have different priorities. At one point, we had automation engineers that were writing, great, impressive scripts that our manual testers didn't utilize. And there were some reasons for it, and some of them that we heard. Automation, people are fearful of automation replacing them and the work that they do, which is a valid concern. Another is just not trusting the results. And that just comes from not being engaged into what automation is actually going to provide for them to make their lives a bit easier. And lastly, one of the challenges that we have is just not enough lead time on the project. And that's a whole different thing. But again, that gets into the collaboration with the organization as a whole. And we'll talk about that a bit later as well. The third is just fragmented automation. Sorry about that. We, like many other organizations, we ended up with a patchwork of tools and approaches. I know some of you out there, use Selenium, you might use some other commercial tools, or you could be like us and rely on both manual and automation. And the fragmentation, this kind of leads to inconsistent coverage. It creates, knowledge silos, and it just becomes a bigger maintenance issue, a bigger overhead for maintenance. So I'm guessing that many of you have experienced at least some of these pain points. So let's see what we can figure out about some of the solutions that we can do. So the solution isn't really choosing between, do I do bespoke code or do I find a no-code approach? It's really trying to figure out how to strategically integrate both of them. And there are times. So with the code-based automation, typically that involves programming languages like Java, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript. Frameworks like Selenium, like I mentioned earlier, or Cypress and Playwright. Cypress and Playwright are two that we use primarily. And the strength here is the flexibility that you get in order to get some deep customization in the testing that you're doing. So you can pretty much test anything that you can think of with code and fine tune your approach for some of those complex scenarios. And we have plenty of those, just being in the type of organization that we're in. For the no-code automation, that is kind of like the Jetsons, if you will. It relies on visual interfaces, a lot of record and playback functionality, and a lot of pre-built components. So tools like Applitools Autonomous, allows testers to create automated tests with minimum coding. Now, I'm not going to say no coding, but I will say minimal coding. And the advantage here is just really speed and accessibility. And so with the accessibility, it means that our team members without coding backgrounds can still contribute to the automation effort. It gives them, a new skill set. It gets them a new challenge, but they don't have to become a developer in order to contribute to the automation effort. And so here, we found that integrating these approaches, we got pretty good results. We were able to do faster development. We've got some folks who, if we go through and use Autonomous, we're able to get some really quick wins for some of the very simple things, while we do know that we're going to have to lean into some of those code-based approaches to handle those edge cases. And again, the inclusive environment, again, everybody is able to join in. If you can use a website, you can contribute to automation using Autonomous or a tool like it. So some of the skill gaps, without expecting everyone to become a coding expert, so we tried a few things here. First is Test Automation University. Shout out to TAU. We encourage all of our testers who were interested in at least learning about automation or trying to start the automation journey to spend some time on TAU. It's a very good platform to get an introduction and foundation of automation. Secondly, we used platforms like LinkedIn and Udemy. I believe we have a new platform that we rolled out here recently. But, we were able to put together learning tracks for testers so that they can get a deeper understanding of coding and automation. And again, coding is hard. And so trying to find ways for folks who were very comfortable doing manual tests and not so much into the ones and zeros of it, trying to find a way to get them into a developer mindset. And lastly, we figured out that we would do some mentorship. So, we created opportunities for our manual testers to connect with the folks in automation. And the goal here was just to really increase the engagement with the manual testers who were looking for some guidance, but also just to kind of like let them know that not everybody needs to code, but everybody needs to understand the principles behind automation and where their skills fit into the bigger picture. And that seems to have worked out pretty well. I think we have some more folks on our team who are really looking forward to diving more into, tools like the autonomous testing. So the other thing I mentioned was accelerating the test cycles. So we can definitely do that through some efficient automation. The first approach would definitely be parallel execution. So both our code and our autonomous frameworks are configured to run tests simultaneously. Sorry about that. I did not expect that to happen. Cut that down. Yeah, we configured to run those tests simultaneously across multiple environments and browsers. And the goal here is just to reduce testing time. Now, there will be times where you have to run it serially instead of parallel, but most of the time you can run those tests parallel and get through the testing a lot quicker. Second is just making sure you find the right tests to automate. Trying to automate 100% of the test, that's no good. That's a fool's errand. It's inefficient. Instead, take a little bit of time, do some analysis to determine which tests are needed based on the code changes. And I think that really helps us reduce our regression testing time. And I think in some cases, we reduced it, 60 to 70% of the regression test by making sure we had the correct test automated. And third is through the CI/CD pipelines. Again, both our code and autonomous tests, they can run on schedules and across multiple environments and browsers. As far as our coded, we have them ready so that when developers check in code, we can start testing as soon as that code is checked into the repository. Equally important is, how our manual and automated testing works together. Our automated test, again, handles a lot of the regression, while manual testers, they're able to focus their effort on those high value, difficult edge cases. Then test results from both approaches, we feed those into the same reporting system. And we'll get into this later, but yeah, we use Azure DevOps and are able to report those things out. And it gives us a good unified view of what the quality looks like. And one of the other things that we've done is, we try to shift left as far as we can. I know shift left is one of those buzzwords, but we try to shift left where, our testers, they participate in requirement reviews and begin creating those test cases well before development is complete. And so all of this work, all of this together just really reduces the overall testing time. Some of the integration of code and no code approaches depends heavily on team collaboration. And so we have implemented several strategies. The first one is not really one that you would stand out as much, but it's savings. Like, that's a strategy. How can we save? So, anytime that you can save some time, it has the potential to turn that into revenue. And what I mean by that is, at least as far as for us, is that we've had several departments that leverage Applitools, the output of Applitools, as inputs to their work. So it could be anything from one of our teams needing high fidelity images used for review documentation, or it could be an editorial member who is going through into the tool and reviewing the highlighted changes between revisions that we get. So, we have more use cases, but use cases for savings are there if you get creative. So there are definitely other uses other than, strictly testing that you can get out of Applitools. Another thing is just the increased communication. Our project team members, regardless of their role, are leaning into improving quality, and we're able to do that mostly through word of mouth. I've been in meetings where project members are sharing positive stories about Applitools and their experience and how it saved an error going out into production. So when we're doing that, we're able to provide links to eyes and autonomous results to make it easier for the rest of the project team just to kind of get a glimpse of what things look like. Another thing is just making sure that we have the correct alignment. Manual testers, I would say, please lean on your manual testers. They are experts, especially when it comes to great user experience or the performance that you're looking for on your project. Please consult with them, get them involved early, and please, please, please take their input seriously. These folks know what they're doing. Do not disregard their input. And lastly is just to increase collaboration. Kind of goes along with the increased communication part of it, but this time I'm talking about the tools that we use in that effort. We mostly use, again, Microsoft Teams and Azure DevOps. We use Teams for our quick one-off questions or a little bit more of a discussion if we need to get face-to-face. And Azure is usually there for our long-term retention of our tasks and our tests. So let's see about how we could find some specific strategies for implementing a whole team approach to quality. First, it's just a cultural transformation. So change, right? I think we've talked about change a little bit. We need to identify team members from different disciplines, different departments to serve as quality advocates. And we need them to be quality advocates within their group. We need them to make sure that they inspect their inputs to make sure that it is what they need. And then we also need them to inspect their output to make sure that the next person or persons down the line don't have to come back and do all the back and forth to get the right thing. And then, as we do that, we just need to celebrate one another, like celebrate the wins. Some of the lessons learned, we created some tools for manual testers to leverage some of the automation, especially for setup. Even though they don't have to write the automated tests themselves, the tools will definitely help them get the majority of the just manual minutia out of the way. And we've also moved to an autonomous first approach. So we'll take a look at the project. Is it something that it's a simple type of thing that we can get somebody into autonomous and get that up and running quickly? Or is it something where, we have a lot of hoops to jump through and we need someone more seasoned as a developer to go in and code that approach for us? So take a look at autonomous first. If not, then we'll go the code base. And thirdly, one of the things is just team unification. Kind of goes with that cultural transformation. Quality is everyone's responsibility. We ask all departments to call out risk whenever they encounter them. We need them to share in the ownership, which helps with transparency, because no one wants to be the person who didn't raise their hand to prevent an issue to making it to production, right? And so as we just all say that, okay, we recognize that we're all in this together, and I am responsible for quality. I'm not just going to say that, hey, Eric's QC team, what did you all miss? How did you miss this? And it's more of like, well, what did we do in order to make this thing not be, what happened? Why did we not detect this further up before it even made it to quality? And so with that, I believe we have made it to questions. So I'm really interested in hearing some of the specific challenges of what you're running into and discussing how you have covered and how you apply the situation.
Let's see, we did have a poll here. All right, so we asked, in the current project, well, one of the questions was, what type of testing tools does your team use for testing? And to kind of speak to your point, Eric, about that, we'll start with this first, and then we can move on to challenges a bit. But it looks like the majority of the crowd was using code-based automation tools, and about a quarter of them are using both.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Especially again, I think most of us old dogs that have been in the game for a while, we cut our teeth on some type of programming language, and it's just second nature to us to do it. And I think a lot of that hesitancy to pull up into the no code is we've seen no code in the past, and it just hasn't been our cup of tea. So tools are getting better. Tools like Autonomous have definitely helped change the game on that. So I think that we'll start to see the uptick.
Mm-hmm. And then, all right, so here's what the audience was seeing as some of their biggest challenges. And it looks like the top one here were skill gaps, which you spent some time talking about, followed by test maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, the skill gaps, again, I would recommend, especially anybody that is a customer or is used to Applitools, Test Automation University is a fantastic resource for anybody that is looking to, get into automation or learn more about automation. So please check that out. I don't have the link on that. Maybe that's something that we can make sure it makes it out to the group when we do a follow-up email.
Exactly. And that has been put in the chat too for anyone that's looking for the link.
All right. Yeah, collaboration, silo workflows. Yes, and yes. That is why it's so important to make sure that, we just have a spirit of collaboration. Like, I don't want anybody on my team to be afraid to raise their hand and say, look, I got a question about a requirement. I got a question about this code that was changed. It seems to have changed more than I was expecting. So, we have our analysts that are kind of siloed. They're doing their job over here to change requirements. And then, we've got our testers who are looking at those requirements, and developers who better be looking at those requirements to implement. So we have some difficulties there as well. So any developers out there, please make sure that, actually all of you, analysts, testers, developers, please get together, talk with each other. You're not enemies. You're on the same team. Let's just figure it out what we need to do so that we can get the best product out in the least amount of time possible.
Perfect. All right. So I think we do have a few questions that have popped up. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and move through to some of those.
Okay.
All right. So we'll go to our first one here. So they're asking, adding no code to your pipelines. How do you reduce time since there may be duplicate coverage? How do you align to your coded solutions?
Yes. So that is a challenge. I'm not going to lie to you. It is a challenge. And a lot of that comes with this documentation of how you're going to record the different types of tests that you're doing. So to your point, there may be some overlap there, but I think how you could start to lessen the overlap and actually get better coverage is to do what I suggested before, is take a look and see if there are any quick wins to use a no-coded solution. And so maybe it is, you can do 40% of your test through a no-coded solution. Why not take that win? That's an easy win. It's quick. And then you can do, the other 60% as a coded solution. It doesn't mean that you're going to lose automation engineers. I mean, you're still going to need people who can code, but maybe they don't need to code as much. And so I think that you'll just start to see, again, a tick up in the folks who can, easily contribute to the no-code solutions. Again, leaving some of those gnarly coded solutions, it gives you more time on that. So I don't know that it's necessarily going to feed into the pipeline the way that we're used to thinking about the pipeline, as far as me checking code in and then it automatically runs. On autonomous, for instance, we just basically have like a cron job, the timer that we wanted to run, X amount of times, either, daily, weekly, or monthly.
Perfect. Thank you for going into detail on that one.
Sure.
And we'll pull up our next question here. All right, so priority question. In what order would you prioritize activities to start integrating code and no-code tools?
Again, just the order is just taking a step back and taking a look at what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Like, don't just go out and do no code just because, hey, we think this is going to be cheaper, it's going to save us money. Not necessarily. Don't do that. Make sure it is actually going to meet the need of your business, right? So again, it could be maybe you have 2 or 3, big, web apps that you're responsible for, and it's easy enough to get in and do logins. It's easy enough to go in and check profiles, set, like it's okay to do those things. It's just, it will take you some time to do the analysis of, is this something that I'm comfortable with just doing, a record and playback, which some of that stuff is pretty easy, or do I really need to get deep and down into it and do some API testing, which again, that also is something that will be coming in autonomous. So just wait for that. That is a tool that's coming out too. So
API testing is in there currently. But we are constantly have items on our roadmap to improve current features as well.
So hopefully that answers the question. I would say, again, just the analysis part of it. Does it make sense for what it is that you're trying to accomplish? And if so, start small, see if it's, if it's actually going to give you the benefit that you're looking for, and then scale up from there.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Head over to our next question here. So any good suggestions for better adaptability and alternative options?
Let me see if I understand this correctly. Better adaptability. Well, I think for the adaptability part of it, if you're talking about the no code, one of the challenges that we faced going into autonomous was, again, you had us old dogs who are used to coding and getting a specific thing to do the thing, right? Like I need to be able to remove an element from the viewport before I take a screenshot. How easy is that to do in a no code tool? It wasn't very easy for us when we started with autonomous. So, we worked with that team and got a lot of features added to autonomous that I think is definitely something that will help a lot of other teams to be able to adapt. And again, start small, take something small, something that maybe even a POC, and just put it through and see what types of things make sense for you. Now, as far as things that get altered, the code base that gets altered, I think what you may be meaning is from the thing under test, the application under test, if I'm following you correctly. That, again, is just more of the collaboration and communication between development, QC, analysts, so that you all understand what it is that you're going to be looking at and what changed, so that you can update whatever scripts you need to update.
All right, next one. What has been your experience with getting buy-in from leadership for the whole team approach?
So I would say that this one was easy for us because we had leadership come through and want to do cultural transformation, right? They wanted to make sure that we were as efficient as possible. So they really encouraged us to go out and find ways to, increase our efficiency while maintaining high quality. And that's a blessing. That's very nice to have leadership that's like, tell me what it is that you need in order to get these things done. And so buy-in for us was really easy. Mm-hmm. I will say that if you think that buy-in from leadership will be a challenge, I think it's just taking some time again and pointing out the system as it is today and the system as it will be tomorrow, and making sure that the tomorrow vision is something where they can see this saves time, it saves money, and it allows us to do more. Now, again, that could be, I understand the environment that we're in with, businesses doing certain things, but that is definitely what leadership is looking for. They're looking for efficiency and basically cheaper cost.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then we probably have time for a couple more questions, and then we'll move on. But for this one from Anna, how do you organize your visual tests? Do you keep them separate or integrate them as additional checks within your functional tests?
Yeah, so good question, Anna. I knew Anna was going to ask something like this. So one of the things that we do is we go through and we'll go through a scenario in that test, and we'll add visual checks along the way. So we're getting a 2-for-1. Basically, we're doing our functional test and we're taking a screenshot to make sure that we can do a comparison.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. All right. And we'll pull up one more question here.
Sure.
So what is your strategy to implement AI in the no-code automation solution you already have? And what areas will you target initially?
Oh, all right. So with the implementing AI, we actually here we have what we consider an AI council, and they pretty much give us guidance on the different types of AI tools we can and cannot use, and they definitely put out different proof of concepts for us to look into. But I would say that it's pretty open as far as what it is that you can do with AI. I think for us, one of the things that I wanted to use AI for, or leverage AI for, was just requirements analysis and test case analysis. Like, do we know that we have all the common tests covered based on the requirements, or are there other requirements that we just didn't even think about? So that's a good use for AI. It's just to look for completeness of the things that you're trying to accomplish. And also, it will offer you some uniformity across your teams.
That's true. And I agree with that. And you know what? Looking at time, we're going to bring in actually one more question. And then this, I promise, is the last question.
Oh, no, you're fine.
All right. So when trying to balance code versus no code, how are you focusing testing? For example, in my case, the coded tests are focused on the automation pipeline smoke testing, and the no code is the more detailed regression type tests that have high return and short term.
Sure. I think that is a good approach to it. Again, when we were fully, bespoke coding, we did them both, right? So again, it's just looking for the quick wins on the no code is probably the way to go. I wouldn't spend a lot of time, unless you really have to, of taking all of your coded solutions and moving them into a no coded solution. I think that's just a waste of time, unless, again, there are just circumstances where it forces you to do it. Again, looking at no code first might be a good approach for you to take, just to see, like, is it really worth spending up the time to do a bespoke coded solution when I can get, maybe it's 50 or 60% I can get through no code. Well, let me get that 50 and 60% through there. And like the person asked, now that regression part of it is just ready to go. I can do that on demand, or I can put it on a schedule and let it run. And now I can spend some more time focused on the harder things, if you will, the more difficult things, and use a coded solution for it.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think it probably also depends on the capabilities of your teams. It's like
Sure,
anything else. There's gray area, and it
there
depends
are
on
gray
where.
areas.
It depends on your situation and what your needs are too. All right. And then Eric, I know you have some closing thoughts. And
Change is definitely something that we all have to deal with, and it's been a thread of our discussion today. But one of the things I want you to remember is something by a gentleman by the name of W. Edwards Deming. He says, "It is not necessary to change. Survival is not mandatory." So I really want you to really dig into what he's saying there. He was saying that you can read resistance to change. Your competitors are going to change. And so if they're going to change, they're going to get you out of the market. So please just take that for what it is. And I thank you for your time.
thank you, Eric, so much for your time. And thank you to everyone who's joined us today. At Applitools, our AI-powered end-to-end testing platform makes it simple for teams of all skill levels, whether they code or not, as we've seen today, to create, execute, and maintain powerful automated tests that streamline clinical work or test flows. And if you're already an Applitools customer, you can reach out to your account team to learn more about how autonomous or the intelligent testing platform can help you. And if you're not yet an Applitools customer, you can always see firsthand how autonomous can help your team work smarter and not harder without compromising on quality by signing up for a free trial, which you'll be able to see on the banner below. And again, thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon.